Good evening, it's Monday night, it's your community football show, it's the ILFL Soccer Night show. Good evening. The weather tried to get rid of our football, but it didn't work because we had the big game in the Premier Division still on. We had game in the first and games in the second division, not to mention the ILFL and Shanali Otif Veterans League, which even the freezing temperatures couldn't stop. More about that later on in the show with our guests who I'll introduce to you a little bit later. But first, in this first segment I'm going to show, we're going to talk about, there are a couple of big games coming up in the Premier Division, big games. The first one was London Tigers v West End, the two West London teams battling out. They didn't come to East London for their game. They stayed in West London, Regis Park, as it were, for their local top-of-the-table clash. We have highlights of that game that happened yesterday, and what a game it was. It didn't disappoint. Here it is, London Tigers versus West End. And there it was, 3-0, a comprehensive victory from a very impressive Tigers team, although I have to say West End played their part, and I think maybe a goal would have merited their efforts. Hasnat, you were there behind the camera watching the scenes. It was a great game.
Absolutely. It was a great showcase for Premiership football. We had two teams that were strong, showed some quality on the field. I mean, there wasn't a single person out there that had a faulty first touch. So, I mean, the quality was there. It was, I mean, well done to West End for actually making a good game of it, and the scoreline was flattering because we went in 0-0 at half-time.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I mean, Tigers did what Tigers seem to do, come out in the second half, really pound their way through, get the goals that are necessary, and then sit back and absorb, and that's exactly what happened.
It was as good a performance as I've ever seen from Tigers. From the first second, they came out with intent and purpose, and I know you've got some graphics to explain how things went through the game, Hastat.
Yeah, I mean, if we can take you over to the screen.
Just show you on the screen now.
So you can see the way, I mean, West End there, you can see their line-up. So they've lined up with 5 men in the midfield. And what they did, I mean, they played up to half-time in that formation, and it was 0-0. I think what they did was they decided, right, that it's their home turf for them. They want to change things. So what they did, they made 3 substitutions early on. I mean, at half-time, they made that substitution, which you just saw there. Then they made the second one, just changing the defensive midfield. And then what they did was they removed the left winger, and they put on their main man, Emil, who we've seen earlier in the season, you know, absolutely destroy teams. And you can see, so they've gone to a 4-4-2, hoping to go and win that. So, I mean, positive. It's exactly what we'd like to see. Positive, go out there and go and win the game. Whereas Tigers, now you can see the Tigers formation up on the screen there. Tigers had a very, very narrow sort of formation, but what they did was they actually kept the defensive right. So at half-time, when they made their substitution, they did not change their formation. You can see there the substitutions they made were straightforward, like-for-like players. And it actually paid off because West End changed their formation, Tigers kept it the same, and so very early on, Tigers, keeping everything the same, seemed to take advantage of that, you know, that level field in the midfield, and so they actually went and got that goal out. Then they went and picked up on 2 defensive errors, unfortunately, yeah, and so that's what happened. And as you can see, you know, Kai sort of came on in the second half near the end, and he even tried the old Rabone.
He tried the Rabona. Yeah. Which didn't quite work off, but hey, confidence was high in the team. They were looking good, and like I said, Tigers were looking good. Great advert for the Premier Division, as you said. The Premier Division, that's sponsored by Sawar & Co, no less. I'm sure everyone's happy to see that game here on the screens tonight because it was a great game. West End played their part, Tigers played their part. Great advert for the Premier Division, and Tigers now for the title. Yeah,
well, prior to this, Tigers were 6 points ahead of West End, but West End had the 2 games in hand. So had West End won, they would have been only 3 points behind, still with 2 games remaining, and could have leaped from them. But as a result of that, it's now put West End on the back foot because it's, you know, they've now not been able to overtake Beaumont and Stepney. They're finding themselves now really chasing the title. Tigers, nice little cushion for them. None of the other games took place, so they can actually sit quite comfortably 6 points ahead.
They can indeed. You heard me talk at the top of the show about it was the first of a couple of big games to come. We'll talk more about that with the rest of the Premier Division boys later on in the show. Here are the tables for you now. As Hastat said, with the Premier Division, Tigers, as you can see, sitting top. They played a game more than the 3 teams behind them. In fact, 2 games more than West End. 6 points clear of Stepney. But everybody will be looking for favours to be done to reel Tigers in, but it's in their hands. And if they win their remaining games, they will be champions. We move on into the First Division. There were 2 games that took place. Burdett went down by 2-1 against Bow, who seemed to turn it on. Like I said, 1 week on, 1 week off for them. They got their act together and got a victory. And St Catherine's beating Weavers by 4-1, and that leaves the First Division looking like this. SCTA game not on, as you can see there. Reach Out now played a game more than them, but still a point behind. So again, it's in the hands of SCTA, and if they win all of their remaining games, they will be First Division champions, but they are the 2 teams at top. Bow trying their very best to hang on there in 3rd place. Into the Second Division, and the 3 games that take place there. Riverside hung on to Beaumont Youth, it seems, but they couldn't do anything more than get a goal against them. 3-1 Beaumont Youth winning that game. Robin Hood Tigers, well, Robin Hood Tigers doing what they do and turning up and seeing how many goals they can score in any given weekend. They put 9 past the Tower Hamlets B side. And Redcoat beating Al Mazan by 6-1, and the second division table looks like this. As you are, it's still the top 2 teams going away with it. 2 points the difference between those two. Still hard to call what's going to happen in that division, I should say. Other teams might still play a part. Redcoat doing it with an impressive 3rd place there on 22 points. Nanu, I will ask you now, with Tigers and Robin Hood Tigers and Beaumont Youth, I know you're responsible for St Catherine's under 21 there. We probably asked you the question before, but now with the running, 3 games to go for each of those top 2 sides, is it Tigers all the way?
It's got to be Tigers all the way. They've been really impressive even from the start. You saw yesterday's results, 9 goals against the Tower Hamlets B team. Tower Hamlets B team is a really good team as well, but the 9 goals just says a lot. It goes a long way. I can't see anyone defeating Robin Tigers. I think they'll probably cross the line before even some of the teams even do a catch-up on them. And
for the new teams that have come through the second division, they played their part. They've done their best. Some have had, it's been differing kind of success, if you like, for some.
It's difficult. At the end of the day, I mean, you can say it's the second division, but it's still competitive. And some of the teams are fairly new. But one of the teams that actually surprised me was Redcoat, because this is the first winter season, and they have done so well. It personally surprised me because I thought they weren't going to do that well, But they've done very well. But some of the teams, like St Catherine's on under 21, a very new team, a lot of changes have gone through. There's been some disturbances and the turbulences, but once they get over it, I mean, they'll get the ground running soon. But, for most of these teams, it's first season. A lot has been learnt, and they'll continue to learn, and they'll continue to improve.
They will indeed. One of those new sides in the league are Riverside. Our guests on the show this evening have come from that very club, and we'll be speaking more to them in the second segment of the show, alongside with the Vets League and all the other bits and pieces that we have here on ILFL Soccer Night. We'll take a break and see you right back after that.
আপনারা দেখছেন ILFL Soccer Night।